The alarms blared through the glass-walled lobby of Oralink Motors as a crowd formed around a sleek black prototype car that hissed smoke from its open hood. Everyone looked tense except for the man standing with a mocking grin, the CEO himself, Adrian Vecker, famous for his brilliance, his pride, and his ruthless standards. Across from him stood a grease-stained mechanic wearing a faded blue shirt with his name embroidered above the pocket, Ryland Shore, a single dad who had just been called in to take a look. When Adrian laughed loudly and announced to everyone that if Ryland could fix the impossible malfunction in 10 minutes, he'd marry him, the room erupted in amusement. No one thought a mechanic from a rundown garage on the city's edge could repair a high-tech hybrid prototype that had just failed in front of the world's richest investors. But Ryland didn't smile. He stood there with tired eyes, oil-smudged hands, and a heart that had been beaten too many times by life. And he had his own reason for not walking away. Ryland had not come to Oralink Motors for glory or wealth. He had come because his daughter needed him. 9-year-old Era Shore had been fighting a respiratory condition that made every night a battle, and the hospital bills had already drowned Ryland's savings. He worked double shifts at the only mechanic shop willing to hire someone who needed constant emergency leave. He had patched together cars built decades before he was born, but he had never touched a multi-million-dollar hybrid prototype built with advanced AI-regulated systems. Yet he was standing here now, surrounded by cold marble floors, glass ceilings, and people who stared at him as if he had stepped into the wrong world. The challenge was meant as a joke, a humiliation for the man who accidentally spilled coffee on an investor's shoes while delivering cheap spare parts earlier that day. Adrian had overheard the whispers that Ryland needed work, that he had applied for a technical trainee position months ago and never received a reply. And when the prototype malfunctioned, Adrian, frustrated, cornered, and desperate to save face, latched onto the nearest scapegoat. Ryland. The mechanic with calloused hands. The single father with a worn-out smile. The room watched as Adrian tapped his watch dramatically, giving Ryland 10 minutes. The wealthy CEO's fiancée, Seraphine Lorne, an elegant, soft-spoken woman with gentle eyes and a calm posture, stood silently beside him, watching the situation unfold with a furrowed expression. She did not laugh. She did not mock. She only looked curious, and slightly disturbed at the CEO's theatrics. Ryland's heart pounded, but not from fear of failing. He had failed many times in life, failed to keep his family together, failed to save his wife when illness took her too soon, failed to shield Era from the world's cruelty. But he had not failed her spirit. He had not failed in his promise to try, every single day, no matter the weight on his shoulders. So when he stepped toward the smoking car, it wasn't pride pushing him. It was the memory of Era's rasping breath the night before, whispering that she wished he didn't have to work so much. The midday sunlight pushed through the glass ceiling, illuminating rising smoke like silver threads. Ryland peered into the machine, eyes scanning rapidly, breath steady. He had seen something like this once, long ago, before his life collapsed, back when he was in technical school studying to build engines for a better future. Before he dropped out to care for Era. Before every dream was put on pause. The crowd muttered. Adrian checked his watch again. Seraphine stepped a little closer, noticing the way Ryland's brow tightened with concentration. Ryland reached into the hood, ignoring the heat. A fusion coil had overcycled, probably due to a misread sensor. Oralink prototypes used experimental battery regulation units, something he had once written an essay about. He unclipped the thermal stabilizer, twisted 2 wires together using only his fingers, and bypassed a failed neural regulator that had short-circuited. He was not repairing the car. He was rewriting the problem. Improvising under pressure. Breathing life into a machine that had millions of dollars behind it but lacked one thing: human instinct. 8 minutes in. His hands moved like they remembered a life he never fully lived. The small crowd fell silent. 9 minutes in. He closed the hood gently, wiped his hands on his shirt, and stepped back with a quiet nod. The moment he pressed the ignition, the engine hummed like a perfectly tuned instrument. No smoke. No failure. A flawless startup. The crowd gasped. Adrian's jaw tightened. The investors looked impressed. Seraphine stared at him with astonishment, her eyes softening. But Ryland didn't look at them. His mind flashed to Era, her smile, her messy drawings, the way she hugged him even when he smelled like motor oil. He had done this for her, not for applause. Adrian forced a smile, the kind that hid panic. He hadn't expected Ryland to succeed. He certainly had not expected to be embarrassed in front of investors. The marriage remark had been a joke, an arrogant, careless one, but now every camera was replaying it, every investor was eyeing him, and Seraphine was looking at him with a disappointment colder than winter air. Adrian cleared his throat, ready to twist the situation, but Seraphine stepped forward before he could speak. She thanked Ryland with a sincerity that momentarily stunned the room. She acknowledged his skill, his courage, and the fact that he had saved Oralink Motors from a multi-million-dollar public failure that could have destroyed their day's event. She said his work deserved recognition. Real recognition. That afternoon, Ryland received a job offer, not from Adrian, but from the company board members who had witnessed everything. A position in the diagnostic engineering division. Good pay. Healthcare. Stability. A future. Ryland accepted with trembling hands, imagining telling Era the news. But the story didn't end there. Because sometimes fate loves long roads, unexpected turns, and people who cross paths by accident but stay by choice. Seraphine later visited the garage Ryland had worked at, bringing a bouquet not of flowers but of small mechanical parts arranged into the shape of a heart. She said she admired his dedication to his daughter, that she saw in him a sincerity missing in the corporate world. She shared how Adrian's pride had suffocated their relationship long before the event, how she felt trapped in a life that looked beautiful from outside but felt hollow inside. Ryland, confused yet humbled, simply listened. In the weeks that followed, he began working at Oralink where he found purpose beyond survival. His team appreciated him. His ideas were valuable. Era's treatments improved because he finally had resources. And Seraphine, she kept showing up. Not romantically, not dramatically, just with warmth. She brought lunch when he forgot to eat. She asked about Era. She sat on the garage floor with him once, holding parts while he repaired a small motorcycle model for a company event, laughing when he dropped screws everywhere. Their connection grew not from intensity, but from gentleness. The day Era met Seraphine, she hugged her instantly. It startled both adults. Era said Seraphine reminded her of sunlight through a window on difficult mornings, warm, quiet, kind. One afternoon, months after the incident, something unexpected happened. Adrian resigned from his position after internal pressure and a scandal involving the prototype failure. Seraphine officially ended their engagement quietly, respectfully, without spectacle. The world moved on. But Ryland's world changed in a different way. Seraphine became a steady presence in his and Era's life, showing up not as someone above them, but someone willing to sit beside them. She admired how he worked with his hands, how he fixed things patiently, how he raised Era with gentle strength. Ryland admired her resilience, her understanding heart, her humility despite her upbringing of wealth and comfort. Their bond became visible in small moments, sharing lunch in the sunny parking lot, working side by side during a new community project Oralink launched, talking about dreams they both thought they had lost. By the time one full year had passed, their friendship had quietly woven itself into something deeper. Still, Ryland hesitated. He carried scars, financial, emotional, parental. He feared offering someone a life that had been mostly storms. Then one clear afternoon, under a wide-open sky, Seraphine told him something that made his breath stop. She said she admired not the man who fixed machines, but the man who never stopped fixing life even when it kept breaking. She said she didn't want a grand romance, she wanted a simple, honest partnership.